Well, the 49ers are basically sending the Walking Dead into Orchard Park, New York. Buffalo Bills, San Francisco 49ers, Sunday Night Football, and this is the kickoff show. Lorenzo Neal, Evan Giddings, Cam Williams back behind the board, getting us set for what was, I think originally after week 1 or week 2, we thought this might be one of the games of the year. We thought that the Niners and the Bills would be matching up. Might even some people have said a Super Bowl preview low, but that was a couple months ago, and now we're at a point where the Niners are sending about as a long list as the 53-man rosters on the injury report. That's pretty much what they're sending to Buffalo.
Yeah, no question, man. They thought this would be a preview of the NFC and AFC. This was going to be a team that was going to represent the AFC, of course, and you would think this is going to be a team that would represent the NFC, the 49ers. But Lord behold, at least one of them, and 1 out of 2 sometimes isn't bad.
That's true.
Unfortunately, it's the wrong team that's going to probably represent the AFC, the Buffalo Bills, and what they've been able to do. But, hey, you know what? Stranger things have happened. We saw today some huge upsets. The Jets almost upsets, a Seattle team that we thought that could happen. You saw Arizona find a way to lose that game to, Minnesota, who Arizona was winning that game. So you've seen some things happen. Hell, even the winless, team that's out of Jacksonville battled and almost beat the Texans today. So it's just, you never know. That's why you play the game, and we'll see what the Niners have today for us.
We will, and we'll just get this out of the way right now. The injury report for the 49ers, is as long as all three of our bodies put together. It's Aaron Banks, offensive guard, out. Nick Bosa, defensive end, out. Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle, out. You look at Diamador Lenore, cornerback. He's out for this football game. Trent Williams, left tackle, out for this football game. It feels like the only guy, well, obviously Dre Greenlaw, who's been out, is not returning for this football game. It feels like the only guy that was inactive last week for Green Bay that is in this week for Buffalo is the quarterback, and that is Brock Purdy. So the Niners at least have that going for them, but they are 5-6. The Buffalo Bills are a 2-loss football team that are essentially Kansas City Chiefs 1 or 2 loss win away from being atop the AFC, and they're jockeying for postseason position. They're jockeying for that bye. Not to say that they need this win as badly as the Niners, but this is a game that on paper a lot is going to be stacked against San Francisco.
Yeah, it really will be. But it's interesting just to see. You talked about all these names that are out, and a guy that a lot of people I didn't think myself would play is Brock. But you mentioned a name, a guy who's playing on a contract, playing for a contract, a guy who people say, man, maybe shouldn't play because all he could do is hurt himself, especially against a team like Buffalo Stature. A team that's, leading the AFC, one game behind, would be the number 1 seed, playing in the weather conditions that's cold, playing on a bum shoulder, had surgery a couple years back. Guys, it's just been tough as nails and is the focal point of your team, and he answers the bell. That says a lot about Brock Purdy, who he is as a person, who he is as a man, and what this game means to him. He's willing to say, I don't care about this contract. I don't care about anything that's surrounding me. I care about going and winning, and I know I give my team the best opportunity to win this ball game in Buffalo. Kudos to Brock Purdy. Says a lot.
I'm 100% with you. Like, that is what you want from a franchise guy. When you give someone, however much money it is, it could be, it could be $60 million, it could be $40 million. We've talked about the $200 million mark being what Purdy is probably looking at this offseason. Whatever the check says, when you give someone a significant amount of cash, you want to have confidence that they're going to represent you and your franchise and your brand. And something like this today is exactly where that falls into. Brock Purdy could go out there in Buffalo, and it's going to be difficult. There's no doubt about it. It's snowing an inch an hour, sub-20s or sub-30 degree conditions, precipitation at 70 or 80%, and he isn't a guy with a rocket arm like Josh Allen. He's already injured, like you mentioned. But putting yourself at risk, knowing what is coming your way in all probability this summer, to me speaks to the character that Brock Purdy has and the character that you want, whether you're a fan watching or I have to imagine if you're a teammate of his, following him into battle. That's what you want to see from the guy that's under center and probably playing the most important position on the field today.
No question. I look at a guy and you say, okay, well, there's a guy out there that we all say, why is he still playing? What is he playing for? He has enough money. He shouldn't be playing. And you know who I'm talking about. That's Tua. You look at the injuries and the concussions and how this guy is getting knocked out and he's still coming back 2-3 times a year. and how horrific it is in watching the way that he's out there, his body, and they're saying, hey, this guy could be done. But he gets back up, he answers the bell, he comes back in, he keeps playing. I could see that if you already paid.
Yeah.
See, you got a guy in Brock Purdy that's not paid, that is doing, and I'm not going to put those two injuries together because one's, brain injury could be even worse. And the other is, shoulder, but your shoulder, that's how you make your money. Your elbow and throwing arm, that's how you make your money. So here's a guy that's still risking it, hasn't gotten paid yet, has an opportunity to go out here and play well and get paid even more, but also has an opportunity to be hurt, to not and have a lot of money not guaranteed. If you get injured or hurt yourself even further, what does it do to you? What type of setback is that? And will the Niners then be in a situation like they were with Brandon Ayuk? Brandon Ayuk gets hurt and he just plays that last year and he just plays without getting injured. Brandon Ayuk's not getting the contract he just got. Mm-hmm. So if you're Purdy, in the back of your mind, and it's great the way that he thinks, great the way that he's built. But in the back of your mind, you look at Ayuk and you look at all these players that said, look at Trent, they said, I'm not playing because I could get hurt and I know that I won't have this bargaining chip. I know that I won't have this leverage if I was to get hurt. Brandon Ayuk, Trent, McCaffrey, all these guys got things taken care of because they know how this game works.
Well, and that's a great point because what did we talk about this offseason? A big reason why there was just something amiss with the 49ers. And, I don't know if you attribute it to vibes or the feeling, but it felt like that coming off a Super Bowl defeat, players were more concerned about what was going into their pockets. And that's understandable. It was Ayuk's turn to get paid. But Trent Williams had a couple years left on his contract. No guaranteed money, but he wanted to make sure that was sound. Christian McCaffrey wanted to make sure he had guaranteed money. But all of those players were concerned with what they were going to get paid in case there was an injury that happened. Brock Purdy, and we've talked about this over the course of the season, I think he has an opportunity with what he does with his contract to kind of steer the direction of the Niners, and more importantly, the players that deserve cash, steer them back in the direction of, well, yes, you're going to get paid, but getting paid can be a byproduct of the team's success. Getting paid can be a byproduct of us succeeding and winning together. Not necessarily just Super Bowls, but if we succeed, if we win 13 games a year, if we win 12 or 11, we're consistently in the postseason, you're going to get taken care of. And so this offseason, it was all about these big names and these big deals and big cash. And Brock Purdy, by playing in this football game, is, I think, telling us that, yes, money is obviously important. It's generational wealth. He can change his family's lives. But not at the risk of the season going to trash without him at least having some sort of impact on it.
Right. And the difference is this. If I told you I'm giving you $1 million, you're going to make $1 million a year for the next 2 years, $1 million.
Sign me up.
Right. But if you said I'm going to make $1 million and then someone told you you're going to make $3 million, you can probably, if you make $1 million for 2 years and you make $3 million for 1 year, that guy who made that $2 million in those 2 years and the guy who made the $3 million for the 1 year, you can overcome that. There may be a chance you can invest right, do the things you can, and you can overcome that. But when you're talking about a guy that's making $1.7 million and then have a chance to make $60 million or $62 million or $63 million, $1 million is not usually going to yield you $63 million or $62 million. So, I won't go necessarily to the Niners because I know people, oh my God, get off the Niners. I'm not. So let's just talk about Dak Prescott. Because the market said, hey, look, pay you $62 million. Now, he could have went probably somewhere and got paid, but did Dallas really need to pay him? And now when you can't play, look at Michael Parsons, got Michael Parsons on the phone. Are they going to be able to afford him next year? Probably not. They're going to have to tag him or do something because you've already played your receiver.
Yeah, CeeDee
Lamb, and you played Dak. So even though this is what teams have to realize, the market says that, but my team and my structure, and for me, in order for our success, says this. Dallas Cowboys, it would have behooved them to say, let him walk, bring in someone else that could maybe fit and do the same things you could do, maybe the same skill sets as what Dak gave you, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But was it going to cost you $62 million? Was it ROR there? The return on investment? Was it going to cost you $62 million a year per? So that's what teams should look at and say, okay, you can get that on the market. You can probably get more on the market, But if we're going to stay successful and stay viable and stay relevant, we have to pay within our constraints, and that's what I think a lot of teams are getting away from.
Well, the Cowboys situation is confusing to me because that's something you've seen before. The Niners, if they end up, and indeed I believe they will end up paying Brock, but you're paying assuming that he is going in a northern direction.
But what are you paying? And see, that's the thing. I see. That's where I'm saying that my point that I'm making is, look, I can pay you $50 million, $52 million, $55 million. I can pay you because that fits my budget. That fits my narrative that I can still build around you. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about 62, 65, or resetting the market, am I doing that just to say I got the highest paid quarterback? Is that going to hurt my team when you're the Niners and you see where you're at right now? Does it behoove you to not necessarily overpay, but to reset the market because this is the thing you believe that you have to do? When does your team says, I can't do this because it doesn't fit what we need to do collectively as a team to win and to move forward?
Well, the answer to your question, is it going to hurt you? It's yes. It is going to hurt you. Does it behoove you to pay a quarterback? I don't care who it is. Brock Purdy, another name, anybody besides really Patrick Mahomes or maybe the guy we're going to see tonight in Buffalo, Josh Allen. Does it behoove you? No, it doesn't. Because it limits where you're able to build around that quarterback. And as we've seen, there's a couple of quarterbacks this season I think that people might have been labeled done. For example, Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. He doesn't make as much money as he did 3 years ago when he was making 55.
But he's still getting paid from Denver. So the Steelers got him. The Steelers were able to go get this guy and put him in a situation and not necessarily overpay him because of the fact that you just said, because another team is still liable for his contract. And that's where you got write that check. So if not, look where your team would have been. You would have been hamstrung. So like you just alluded to, Josh Allen, Patty Mahomes, those guys can go win you a game, 2 games, just take over 3, 4 games. And just look at what Josh Allen's been able to do this year with this Buffalo team without having necessarily a superstar receiver. He's able to win it with his legs. He can win it with his arms. He can win it running. So when you have a guy of that caliber, yes, you can be mediocre in a lot of other positions because that guy is that talented to carry you elsewhere.
Well, and in a situation like Buffalo, yes, they came into the year missing a number 1 receiver, but they realized they might have been a receiver away. So that's when you make the trade for Amari Cooper. You know, you capitalize on certain seasons.
Is he great?
Amari Cooper?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Right.
Maybe never have been great, but is obviously used to be a number 1 receiver.
Right.
But he helps a wide receiving core that was basically relying on younger guys. Is my point, and that's where. But to your point, all right, the Steelers, they didn't have to overhaul their entire roster, or even with what I believe the strength of their team is, their defense, to bring in a Russell Wilson, to trade for a Justin Fields. They basically were able to add those players, and I think good ones or good enough players, to a system that was already ready to succeed and that might have been an average or adequate quarterback away. Trubisky was not going to help them win last year. My guy Kenny Pickett was not going to help them win, and they moved it in a different direction. And they capitalized on the fact that Russell Wilson was going to get paid no matter what, but for a team that didn't want him anymore. And it's also benefited the Denver Broncos because they've been able to win games with a rookie. So, but to your point, it's like that's the question the Niners have to ask themselves: is Brock Purdy someone that not only you feel comfortable paying, but that you feel comfortable basically playing in a game potentially like tonight down the line? Whether it's because you're not allowed to pay top-tier players, or football happens and guys get injured. Because if Brock Purdy is going to be making $50 to $60 million a year in a couple of seasons, well, then there are going to be games like tonight where, due to surrounding factors, you're not going to have your weapons with you and you're going to be in a hostile environment. Can you win those games?
And that's the thing that we have to see, because tonight is a game that he has to win. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of his stars, doesn't have his star offensive lineman, doesn't have Brandon Ayuk, which he's not going to have anyway the rest of the year. He doesn't have, certain guys that play an integral part for his success, but he's going to have to move the thermostat. That's the thing that Josh Allen can do. Josh Allen, I tell people all the time, there's a difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. Mm-hmm. There's thermostat players and there are thermometer players. Thermometer players, hey, look, you can just put the thermometer in your mouth, and all it'll tell you and measure temperature. A thermostat, you can turn it up. When you want to get it hot, you can turn it down if you want to get cold. They regulate the temperature. Is Brock Purdy, is he a thermostat type of player, or is he a thermometer? I think he's right in between. I don't know if Brock Purdy I think he is an above average quarterback. I think he can go out and manage games. He's quick with the ball, his decision making. He's very smart. So, that makes up for a lot of things that he doesn't have. He's still athletic, but I don't look at him like a Josh Allen. Don't look at him as necessarily a Mahomes. Don't look at him when you look at the Pittsburgh, when you look at, guys like Cincinnati, what the quarterback can do when they have to do certain things to go and elevate it. I just don't know if that's Purdy in a nutshell.
Right now, I don't think it is. And I think that's what we found out about this season is right now he's not. But
can he be?
Is there another level?
Yeah.
That's a hard question to answer.
Is.
Because I think we've seen Brock taking more strides this season. He's using his legs more. I think that he's done more with less. But the issue, and I don't know what you give me for this low, but it feels to me like when you step into a perfect or as close to a perfect situation as you can in the NFL, like Purdy did, the last 1.5 seasons, this is really the first year in which things are not set up for him to succeed. And so I am willing to give him kind of a buffer and see, all right, next year, the issue is you probably have to pay him this offseason. But I do think it's unfair to just judge this 1 year and say he can't do it because a lot of people, great quarterbacks included, there are very few of them that can succeed the very first season where things are not in their favor because oftentimes it's probably the first time in Brock Purdy's life that he hasn't played in an advantageous position. Iowa State might not have had the best talent, compared to an Oklahoma or a Texas or, a lot of those 5 stars that they play with in college. But when you get to the NFL and you're playing with 6 All-Pros and 9 Pro Bowlers for your first 2 seasons, he's had to be basically thrown to the wolves in a couple of these games. And I think this is also one of those games where he's being thrown to the wolves. But what can he do with it? Because he's less than 100%. It's going to be in cold conditions, and a ton of his guys are hurt. That's why I do think we're going to learn a lot about Brock Purdy tonight.
I think that I've learned a lot about him this year, just how tough he is. I've seen that I've seen this guy run for more first downs with his legs and get this team out of trouble. I think he's been pretty amazing. We see this guy struggle a lot right now in the red zone. A lot of it's due to the fact that they're saying, look, we're going to sit back and play zone. No one's going to come open, or your line can't hold up, and you're going to get sacked, or you're going to have to run out of the pocket and create with your legs. So you've seen this guy be forced to do things that's usually not Brock Purdy, and he's done it. He's done it, and he's done it well. I just don't know if this guy can he do it great. Great is a 4th and 2, and he picks up 26 yards for a touchdown with his legs. Great is, it's a minute left and you need a touchdown to win it. And you see him throw a dime in between double coverage and Debo takes it to the house. Great is saying, okay, can I do that like these other guys can do? I think he's been good. I just don't know if this guy's necessarily great. He can win you a Super Bowl. He can win. He's good enough to do a lot of these things, but he needs a good supporting cast. And $62 million a year makes it hard for you to go out and continue to get the supporting cast that you need in order to go ahead and get that pot of gold, which you strive to do, which we know he's striving to do, because this guy's playing in spite of being a little banged up, being a little bit hurt. This guy's still going out there without his best offensive tackle, and he's still going out there tonight to say, look, I'm not scared of this big, bad Josh Allen. I'm not afraid to go into Buffalo where it's cold, it's snowing, weather's going to be bad. I'm not afraid to be going against possibly the MVP of the league and Josh Allen. Sign me up for it. I'll go. With the bum shoulder, being beat up, being broke down. I don't have my best tackle, don't have a lot of my weapons, but guess what, Coach? Sign me up because I'm Niner ready. Bang, bang, Niner game. And that's why I give this guy a lot of credit. That's why I know this guy should be paid. That's why I know he should be compensated for what he's done in the past several years, what he's carried this team and the things that he's done. I'm just saying, do you pay this guy the absorbent amount because Dak Prescott got paid? Does that make it right? That's the point I'm making.
That's Lorenzo Neal. My name is Evan Giddings. This is the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. I think it's a good question. What are you, and people listening out there, 888-957-9570 is the number. how much are you judging someone like Brock Purdy on this particular game? Because I can see it both ways. You know, I went down the laundry list of injuries that they're dealing with. He's got 2 offensive linemen out. His best defensive player, arguably, in Nick Bosa, is not playing in this football game. You're going to be missing your number 1 corner, at least so far this season, in Diamador Lenore. You have players and rookies that are having to step into spots they haven't been accustomed to against perhaps, maybe, based on how you judge it, perhaps the best team in the NFL in the Buffalo Bills. They're the only team that has beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. So if I throw all that on the table, how much are you judging Brock based on this game? Because I'm not making the choice of whether or not he gets paid or not from this particular game, but I find it hard to not look at this Sunday Night Football game, Low, and say, well, this is a barometer game. You know, this is where everything has it against you. Not to say that Brock Purdy has to. I mean, mathematically, I do think they need to win this game to get back in the playoff hunt. Seattle 7-5. You don't have the tiebreaker against them. If you want to win the division and get to the playoffs, this is, I do believe, a game you have to win.
Yeah, I think,
but it's, to me, it's more about the eye test of this game in regards to Purdy.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily you have to win this one, but it would really help because that means if you lose this one, you got to win out. Seattle did get the win today, but I think this would be a huge win for just the morale and just the team. If you can find a way to go on the road and beat this team that is probably the best team in the AFC, what we've seen thus far, we've seen them beat Kansas City. Kansas City doesn't look that good right now. They're squeaking by. If you can find a way to win this game as a Niner, this is a huge barometer test, and what this does for your confidence, I imagine, would go through the roof.
Well, and that's why when people say it's like, you know, call off the season's over, the Niners are done. What we've seen this season leads me to believe that this isn't right now a playoff team. However, if they end up making the playoffs, that would mean a couple of things. Number one, it means you won probably 4 or 5 of your last 6 games. Even if you don't win tonight, to your point, you would win out. If the Niners somehow won 5 games in a row, which I still don't think you can rule out just because of the amount of talent that's left on this team, that means they're playing some pretty damn good football. If the Niners end up making the postseason somehow, it does mean that they've flipped the switch that we have been waiting the entire season to see flipped. And I don't know if it happens tonight in Buffalo just because of how good of a team that is. And we can get into Buffalo and what they got going on, and especially that quarterback that they got under center who's been utterly fantastic this season, in Josh Allen. But to me, the Niners' season is not yet dead. It is hanging by a thread, however.
Yeah, if you can win tonight and win out, then guess what? I'll say you're a playoff team. If you can win tonight or keep this game close tonight and you lose this game by 3 or 4, then I could say, you know what? This is a playoff type of team. If you get blown out tonight and you lose by 14 or more, and then you find a way to win against the Rams, then you get beat up by Detroit and don't beat Chicago, you're not. And then you try to limp into the playoffs, and then because the other teams around you lose, Seattle and Arizona and the Rams, I'm not saying you're a playoff team. It's the way you finish this season. If you win out, I would say, man, if you can win out the rest of these games, guess what? And you beat Buffalo tonight, and you beat Detroit in a couple weeks, and you beat a Bear young team that can get it done, that plays good defense, and you can beat the Bears, and you can beat the Rams, and you can beat Arizona. Guess what? You are a playoff team because you would have earned my respect. But what I've seen, I just don't think this team can flip the switch and win out the rest of the year. That's why I'm saying, and that's why we're saying what we've seen does not merit that this team is going to do anything in the playoffs. So that's why I would say no, because I have not seen that with my eyes.
No, and that's, again, we're waiting for that game, and that game has not come yet. I do think it's a great opportunity tonight. If they win this game, they absolutely have action. But nothing so far this year has told us. I mean, they literally have not beat a team with a record of 500 or above. Buffalo might be the best team in the AFC. So what they're being asked to do tonight, again, with a host of characters that are out, is an extremely difficult task. 888-957-9570 is the number. Before we hit a break, I want to sneak Shaka and Berkeley in here on the kickoff show. Shaka, what's going on? You're on with Lowe and Evan. How are you?
Hey, what's up, big guys? How y'all doing, man?
Good, man.
Hey, I want to say, man, I know you have a background in rap music, and I know Lowe be dropping them dimes, man. But I'm going to go back to that old school before your time. A song called What You See Is What You Get. And I'm looking at the 49ers. They're not the team they was in the past. But I don't think putting Buffalo and Detroit, if them having to beat them, I think they can beat the Cardinals. They can beat Seattle. When you're dealing with his contract and the future of the 49ers, you got to look at it realistically. Is he a serviceable quarterback? Yes, he is. Is he a $60 million quarterback? I don't think so. But it's going to be a lot going in that decision. If you look at Sam Darnold today, he's been a backup for y'all last year. He was clutched down that stretch. So you got to just be fair, really, because the 49ers made a couple of bad decisions with the absorbent amount of money they're paying their wide receivers, and then that's really coming through right now. And they just paid the running back, and he's hurt. So everybody got to have, don't go for fools, though, and just make right decisions, and you'll get back to where you were.
Somebody who said this, don't give it away, T-Mobile, don't give it away. Snoop Dogg. Remember Snoop Dogg, the commercial that he said, T-Mobile, don't give it away, don't give it all away.
I was going to say, this guy's been on every commercial. I know. Be a little specific.
Exactly. Snoop's on everything, and that's pretty much, don't give it away, Niners, don't give it all away. You're giving away too much. That's what they're trying, that's what people are just concerned of. Hey, look, don't mind paying these guys. Didn't mind paying Brandon Ayuk. Don't mind paying some of these guys, but don't give it all away. Maybe don't pay Ayuk. Don't pay him that much. You got to look at certain things. You got to, as an organization, you have to say, I just can't do it. And not that you don't love the guys, not that you don't respect the guys, because look, if they're good enough and you have, your gift will make room for you. I have many a times tough decisions with other teams that I'm like, Tennessee, Cincinnati, I could have went back. I'm like, you know what? I'm taking my talents up. I know I can get more. I got to go in the market. I'm not staying here. And it wasn't that the owners, it wasn't that the coaches, wasn't that the players didn't like me. It's a part of the business. And that's what the Niners have to continue to do, is make business decisions. No matter how uncomfortable it may be, you have to do it if you want to stay relevant, because the 49ers right now, you think about what has happened the last 4 or 5 years, they have been very relevant. They have been the cream of the crop of the NFC. They're the 49ers, and then who else? Because you think about the last 4 or 5 years, they've been in every NFC championship. They've been to Super Bowls. So now, are you relevant? If you make this move that everyone's saying you have to make for this quarterback position, paying that kind of money, are you still going to be able to be relevant?
That's a question. I think it's a great one. Let's throw it to the people at 888-957-9570. I'll answer it for you on the other side. That's the great Lorenzo Neal. Evan Giddings with you on the Kickoff Show, presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. We'll take you up until kickoff. Niners, along with the Bills, Sunday Night Football. It'll be a cold one. We got more coming at you on the Kickoff Show after this on 95.7 The Game.
Now back to the kickoff show on 95.7 The Game.
Oh, boy, it's a true David versus Goliath showdown in Buffalo tonight. I mean, we got snow going sideways. It does make me feel fortunate, Lo. You know, look, you've traveled, you've been all over, you've been in these situations, you've been on these, tough temperature type fields. It does make me feel fortunate sometimes that I don't have to travel to cover these games. Because, my gosh, I would just be miserable in Buffalo now.
Yeah, well, you just stay indoors until the last minute, and then, then you go upstairs and sit in the box and watch it from the – but the weather can be unbelievable, brutal, and especially this time of year in Buffalo and Green Bay. And that's going to be tough, I think, for this Niner team to go travel. You already traveled to Green Bay last week, and the weather, you saw how that affected you in that game. Now you're going you came back home, and now you're going back to across to the East Coast in a colder, traveling again. It is going to be very, very tough. And not just the weather, but you played possibly top 3 teams in the NFC last week in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at it right now, it's probably Philly. It's maybe, Detroit. And then you got to throw Green Bay in there, the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFC. And what happened that game? How bad did you – now you're getting ready to play a top team in the AFC. That's why it's going to be interesting just to see, because you went back-to-back playing 2 – you're going to be playing another top-tier team. This last week was the first team the Niners have played that is a top-tier team this year. If you go look at their record and the teams that they played, probably Minnesota, you guys are throwing there, but Minnesota as of late not necessarily score. They don't look great, but they've got an amazing defense. Mm-hmm. So if you played 2 top-tier teams with a winning record, and both those 2 teams you did lose to.
Man, well, and Kansas City, and the Chiefs obviously got dismantled by, it's, and we talked about it before. At this point, the best win on the Niners' resume might be Tampa Bay. But you played that team without Mike Evans, who they got back this week, and right now amidst a battle with Carolina. This would be the first chance that the Niners would have to beat a good football team and knock off a marquee opponent, because you talked about the trifecta in the NFC, and I'm with you. Detroit, Green Bay, Philly. I think I could put them in any order at this point, especially with how many injuries a team like the Lions have taken in recent weeks. But in the AFC, it's pretty much a 2-dog race in my mind. It's Buffalo and it's Kansas City. Those are the 2 best teams. I think a team like Pittsburgh is certainly throwing its name in the hat.
Yeah, they won big today. The game wasn't as close as the score indicated.
100%. Yeah, they put 44 points up on Cincinnati, and that's a Steelers team that, to me, the only reason that I don't feel as confident in Pittsburgh the way I do between Green Bay and Detroit and Philly, and it's the quarterback position. I think Russell Wilson is playing better football, but compared to the guy that the Niners will see tonight, Josh Allen, who might be the MVP of the league, and Patrick Mahomes, whose name speaks for himself, that's the reason. It's the reason why I still might have some faith in Baltimore, even if they lose this game to Philadelphia.
Tucker's already missed 3 field goals, by the way, today.
Gosh.
Here's a guy who's a first ballot Hall of Fame.
Man.
And he has the yips worse than any kicker in the league right now. Tucker has been... Nails have been the best kicker in the league. He's missing chip shots, and this is not the first time. So you talk about teams that have momentum. Talk about teams that are great. Baltimore is a top tier team in the AFC, but now one part of their game is not going well, and that's special teams. And that's another part that we haven't even talked about. We're talking about Brock Purdy. We're talking about the offense and defense, but special teams have been ferocious too for the San Francisco 49ers. And we just seen this game today. You're talking about a 2 teams NFC. When you're looking at the Eagles, looking at them, one of the best teams in NFC, they're winning this game because special teams for Baltimore haven't capitalized. They would be up by 6.
And I realize that special teams isn't the part of the game that people see the most, right? It's kickoffs, it's punts, it's field goals. But even if it's not just a kicker killing you, like we saw the Chargers beat a Falcons team today that they missed a kick early. That kind of set them back, and their quarterback turned the ball over too much. We saw last week how the Dallas Cowboys essentially beat the Commanders with special teams. They had 2 returns for touchdowns, 1 that flipped the game, and then the Commanders missing an extra point late along with a field goal earlier. that killed them in that football game. So special teams, it's not necessarily just kicking, and I know it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but the Niners have been dead last every metric, 32nd in the league. That is a big reason why they're also 5-6. And so I know that, we talk about the offense a lot and Shanahan's play calling and their defensive scheme and the injuries killing them. You could make a case that special teams is the reason why this 49ers team is as down as in the dumps as they've been and are on the brink of basically needing to win out to finish their season.
Yeah, special teams have killed this team. And if you were playing better special teams and if you could win that battle, field position today and flip the field, take a return back, block a punt, if you did those things, especially when you're playing a team that's better than you can be better than them on special teams. And I've seen a lot of teams win off special teams. You called it last week. Dallas Cowboys, my man does a spin move and takes it 190 yards for a touchdown. That was like PlayStation on steroids, watching that move that he did. But think about it. If you can win special teams and do it dominant, that's a ball game. That's a win. Today, you're playing against a team that's better than you on a lot of facets of the game. But if your special teams was dominant and you could win special teams and you were going to yield 10 points, you're in the game. That's how big special teams is, especially when it comes to big time games like tonight. When you're the underdog, you have to win certain phases of the game, and special teams and field position and turnovers will be huge.
Well, speaking of video games, it feels like the quarterback for the Bills, Josh Allen, is a guy that was made for a video game. He can throw the ball out of the stadium. He can run over a linebacker, maybe a defensive tackle if given the opportunity. He doesn't seem to take damage. And even though he'll take these massive hits and make sometimes mind-boggling plays, he's always right back in there. I mean, he is the definition of one play at a time. And it's almost like watching Nolan Ryan as a quarterback because the guy throws one speed. It's fast as hell. And in a game like tonight where there's going to be 15-mile-per-hour winds, there's going to be snow, it's going to be cold, you really see the type of arm talent that it takes to play quarterback in a place like Buffalo.
I think Josh Allen is the modern day NFL gladiator. He would play if you said who would you want to play at an NFL for you is the because Josh, he runs over linebackers, he beats DBs with his balls with the way he can throw the ball. He can run through a wall. Mm-hmm. You're not going to stop him on fourth and short. He can break a run for 30, 40 yards. He's just like a Mack truck. He is the gladiator. So tonight is going to be a tall task for the 49ers defense to slow him down, to keep him contained, and to shut down this run game because the 49ers, you're going to be tested. The Buffalo Bills are going to come out, and let's not be mistaken what's going to try to transpire. Buffalo Bills is going to come out here and say, hey, look, this team has not shown that they can run the ball and run it with any type of consistency. We're going to run this ball and to see if this Niners team has fixed some of the corrections that they have that has hampered this ball team. So I just think that you have to do a lot tonight if you're the Niners to change the narrative how not just Buffalo, but the whole NFL, how the NFL, how the fans, how the players, how everyone views this organization right now, because it's not a team that is ascending, it's a team that's descending.
Well, and no, that I 100% agree with you. And you put me up on game a couple weeks ago, the idea that the later in the season you get, certain teams go up, certain team goes down, and it kind of manifests itself sometimes in injuries. And that's one thing about this Niners season that I struggle with a bit, Lo. Maybe you can help me, is that I understand that right now they're the Walking Dead, right? They got 6 starters essentially on the injured list. Some guys are coming back, some guys are not. But this is a football team that had holes in their armor, that had problems underlying or on the surface through the first 10 weeks of the season, going into the bye week. We talked about it, whether it was against the Cardinals and not being able to stop James Conner, who actually just got rewarded with a contract, by the way. But whether it was against the Rams and some of those special teams and big play mistakes showing up against them, there were reasons to believe that this season was not going in the right direction even before they became the Walking Dead. And so, while I think this season is going to be put in the category of, well, injuries happen and this, that, and the other, no. There does need to be kind of a case study or at the end of this season, you're going to go through the body and figure out why it died and what happened and all the rest. There was a lot of different things that went wrong for the 49ers this season, so I don't want it to just be put under the overall, injuries happened in the Niners this year.
I'm 100% with you. If you have to put this on injuries, then you're not been watching football, because their whole offensive line has not been injured this year. Trent just went out last week. You still haven't been able to run the ball with consistency. You have, of course, you didn't have your best running back in McCaffrey, but he came back, and now the offense is running the ball even worse and less.
Yeah.
Why? Because Jordan Mason is more physical in between tackles. Christian McCaffrey is a home run type of running back. He's way better. If you ask me who would I take, it wouldn't be close. I would take Christian McCaffrey every day, 7 days a week. But I'm just telling you, Mason is a change-up because he hid a lot of multitude of faults by this offensive line, but the way how physical and how hard he ran, he'd run through certain arm tackles. This offense has not played well. Yeah, you missed one guy. Who have you missed on this defense? You missed number 57. Of course, you missed it. You missed him, of course, without a doubt. But guess what? Who else? You still had your defense still intact because you didn't have him. But you still can't make excuses, but you still got to go out there and play. You look at Nicky Bosa. Everyone said, oh, my God, the defense, if they had Nick Bosa, a lot of things different would be happening. Guess what? I got Detroit Lions on the phone, and they got Aiden Hudson. Aiden, think about how long he's missing, 4 or 5 weeks, and guess what? The defense has given up some points, but guess what? They're still finding a way to win because they bend, but they don't break. They said, we're going to still do what we need to do. So there's a lot of teams that can use the injury. A lot of teams can say because they got guys hurt, and guess what? A lot of teams are saying that they got guys hurt, and they're still winning. A lot of teams are saying they got guys hurt, and they're still losing. So who are you going to be? Who are you? Because there's a lot of teams out there with a lot of their stars that are not playing, and they're still winning ball games. Oh, by the way, guess what? You look at the team that we talk about, best teams in the NFC, and that team we talked about, Green Bay. Oh, by the way, guess what? They didn't have their starting quarterback for 2 weeks. They used the backup, and guess what they were able to do? Still win. So you can't tell me that injuries is the thing that you just say, oh, my God, now you just got to lose. That's an easy way out. You can't do that. Kyle Shanahan's not saying that. These guys can't be saying that. You still have to find a way because a lot of teams have injuries.
Well, and injuries, it's a part of the game. I mean, Brock Purdy's literally playing tonight with a shoulder that kept him out from last week's game.
Right.
Fred Warner came out earlier this week and said, I've been playing on a broken ankle for the last 7 games. Like, guys play with injuries, and some are more severe than others. I'm not trying to say that because Fred Warner's playing with a broken ankle that you got to be out there. But I do think that no matter what season you have, injuries are going to be a part of it. Injuries might be the reason that the Detroit Lions don't end up representing the NFC, or maybe they don't win the Super Bowl because of injuries. But they haven't let the direction of their season be dictated or diverted and driven completely off the train tracks by injuries. They've had to wear it. They've had to run through walls. And just like any other football team, they've succeeded sometimes, and more often than not, they've succeeded, but they've also been hurt a little bit by it. The Niners, I feel like they're letting injuries become an excuse. And maybe it's more the fan base than the team. I don't think the team make excuses for injuries. But if they don't win this kind of game tonight, that's why when we talk about, okay, what are we looking for? What do we want to see? What I want to see is what I did not at the beginning of last game, which also you could file under injuries in Green Bay. I didn't see a physicality at the beginning of that football game. I didn't feel like that team came out of the locker room with purpose. And it was evident they went 3 and out their first 2 offensive drives. Specifically, that first offensive drive for Green Bay, they went 13 plays, walked right down the field, ran it down your throat, and there wasn't much resistance. That, to me, is something I hope changes tonight in Buffalo. I don't know if it's going to help you win the game overall because the Bills are a really, really good football team. But the start of this game, in my opinion, Lo, it has to at least feel different than it did in Green Bay.
Yeah, it really does. And I just think that you've seen as of late, the Niners just kind of get wore out. And you saw that against Green Bay. That second and that fourth quarter came and just Green Bay just began to lay on them. And you've seen that has been a trend this whole year, that teams are starting to just you impose their will on this Niners team. So it's going to be interesting if they fix that. It'd be great if you see this Niner team start off fast in Buffalo and start hitting, and show the speed and physicality that we're accustomed to see over the years, this Niner team. That's what we need to see. That's what we got to see if you're going to make this a competitive game, because Green Bay coming off of 10 days off of a bye, they're rested. You have to travel 2 time zones on going to Green Bay. Going to Buffalo. Also playing in a hostile environment, playing where it's cold. There's a lot stacked against you tonight. And hey, look, only way you remove that doubt is you come out and you punch them first. Only way you move that doubt, you start getting momentum. You do what you can do well. But I'm going to ask you, if the Niners come out and they do what they do well, what do they do well? You're telling me, hey, this team has a chance. If they have a chance, what is this Niners identity, in your opinion?
Well, I can tell you what they've done well in previous years, but what they do well this season, that's a very difficult question to answer. I think what they have the ability to do well, and you've been on this for a couple of weeks now, really since the loss to Seattle, which in a way has almost saved the Seattle Seahawks season because the Niners and the Seahawks are going polar opposite directions. But the one thing that they have the ability to do well is use a physical back like Jordan Mason to at least test and just see if that defense is going to bend to him. I don't think that McCaffrey is either explosive enough or healthy enough, honestly. He's coming back from tendonitis, and this is about the time when, people say 3 weeks. It takes you 3 weeks to really get into football shape. So maybe this is the time that McCaffrey starts to look a little bit different. But I think where they have the ability to at least do something well, it's try and establish some sort of physical presence. I think that's the only thing this season that I've seen, because they haven't been consistent on defense. They haven't even really been consistent throwing the football, even when Brock has been healthy. Some games he's been really good. Other games he's taken steps back. To me, the running game on offense and really controlling the clock is, I think, the best thing that I've seen them do this season.
Yeah, I agree. That exactly how you laid it out. Is teams going to bend to Jordan Mason's will running the ball? That's what I've seen this team do with some type of success. Can you get back to that tonight? Can you make Buffalo a slow starter? Can you limit the amount of times that Josh Allen touched the ball? Can you control ball control? Can you win the special teams and field position battle? Can you get a turnover? Can you get the ball and get a turnover on special teams to get to give your offense a short field? Can you be more consistent in the red zone offensively? But I need to see, can Jordan Mason bend their will to say this is the kind of game to make them say, okay, this is the kind of game they're going to make us play, a physical type of game. Then you have McCaffrey set him up and do what he does well too. So I think this is going to be a prime example, or this should be a way that the Niners test them out. And I think it starts with Jordan Mason tonight.
And what do fans want to see tonight from the 49ers? Is it physicality? Is it just the fact that they aren't going to roll over? Is it Brock Purdy airing it out through the snow? 888-957-9570 is the number for the Comcast business text line as well. This is from the 408. Can Brock throw the ball deep? It's going to be more difficult on a night like tonight. And the one thing that is a bit unfair, in my opinion, Lo, is naturally watching Josh Allen throw the football, especially through sleet and snow, compared to Brock throwing the football with an injured shoulder through the wind. It's just an unfair comparison.
It really is.
They're two completely different players. Is Brock Purdy as good of a quarterback as Josh Allen? No.
No one's saying that.
No one's saying that. And especially as hampered as he's being. That's why I do think the Niners have to lean more into running the football, which is also going to be more difficult because Trent's not playing in this game. Aaron Banks isn't playing this game. You're going to see Burford at guard. You're going to see Jalen Moore at tackle. And the Buffalo Bills defensive line is formidable. But that to me is where they have to start. And it also starts with someone like Kyle Shanahan. He's going to have to be more creative tonight. There might be more gadget plays. There might be more trickery. Because if there isn't, I'm just not really sure that the Niners can line up as currently constructed with the injuries they have and how they've played this season. I don't think they can just line up and say, you know what? We're going to try and beat the Buffalo Bills head on.
Yeah, it's a mindset though, and that's the thing that we're alluding to and talking about tonight. You necessarily can't say we're going to beat you in physicality, but we can scheme you. Not only scheme you, but we can beat you with our mind, mentally, physical. Do some things that you're not ready for. When you're zigging, we're zagging. Mm-hmm. I just want to see how this team comes out. I just want to see the intensity level that they play with. Hey, look, if I'm taking on a big back, I don't got to hit the guy head on to say that I'm physical. I come in like a seeking missile and take his legs out. So you don't have to be as physical. You can still be physical without necessarily taking on their strength. If I'm playing offensive line, they're trying to come right at me as a defender, and I'm playing defensive line, and I know that they're double teaming, then I'm firing out, and I'm taking these guys' legs out, and I'm causing a foul right there. So now the running back has to jump out of that hole. So there's things that you can do. How do I play smarter, more cunning, more deceptive, doing certain things because I know physically maybe I can't handle it? How am I going to get both guys down so that double team can't come up to Fred Warner, that guard can't come up, climb the tree? How do I come out with an ideal and to combat certain team strengths? And that's what these Niner players have to be thinking. That's what this coaching staff has to be thinking. What are we going to do collectively, scheme-wise, offensively, defensive-wise, to give my team an unfair advantage, whether it's bringing one more guy that can't block and making sure that he gets home, making the quarterback hold onto the ball for one extra second where I know his blind side is getting ready to get blasted. What can I do schematically that's going to give my team an opportunity to go on the road to a hostile environment to beat a very good team tonight?
Well, and schematically, again, it's going to be more difficult for the Niners to win this football game against the Bills. 5:20 Saturday Night Football, kickoff Orchard Park, New York, because they're without these inactives as follows. Demetrius Flanagan-Falls out. Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle, out. Guard Aaron Banks out. Cornerback Diamador Lenore out. Defensive end Nick Bosa out. Left tackle Trent Williams out. And also, Brandon Allen is inactive for this football game. So Josh Dobbs will be the backup for the 49ers. Does it make you think about last week, the fact that Allen was playing in that game, was playing with a broken hand? Does it make you look back on that game any different, Lo?
You know what? It's interesting. Now he's out tonight, and now you got Dobbs at that number 2, and you said playing with a broken hand. And to me, last week, of course, I can play the quarterback. Everyone can play the Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
But last week, when you look at what you were playing against a team that plays good defense and your offensive line was struggling, why wouldn't you have a guy that can create opportunities with his legs running the ball and Dobbs that give you that's just going to keep a defense more honest, because if you pin your ears back, he can take off and hurt you with his legs. So I thought that Dobbs would get some more burn, but then, find out that Dobbs doesn't necessarily know the offense as well as the other, gentleman that played the quarterback. So that's what it was, a huge factor.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just, again, it's kind of like the Niners are, again, a team that's going to have to get a bit creative tonight in Buffalo. Maybe Josh Dobbs was a player last week that they'd have to get more creative against Green Bay. I don't think it makes a difference. I mean, they lost that game by, 3 or 4 touchdowns. It wouldn't have made a difference. But I do think that it was interesting they chose to go with Allen over Dobbs, considering he's playing with a broken hand that we found out had been broken for a couple of weeks. When we come back here on the kickoff show, again, presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. I do want to get into some of those kind of interesting names that have been popping up around the NFL as it relates to the 49ers as they get set for the Buffalo Bills. There was a quarterback that we both had an eye on that played today, actually a couple of quarterbacks that we can use to get into this discussion. Evan Giddings along with Lorenzo Neal. Also, Lo, you're going to be on TV in about, a half hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah, KPIX, do a little KPIX, watch a little pregame, talking about this Niner game as well. So, yeah, going to do that. And I just love talking sports, man. Love being able to talk about X's and O's, a game that I love, a game that's done so many great things for me and my family. And just watching this Niner team tonight is just a game that you want to see them play better. You want to see them put their best feet forward. And as a fan watching now, you want a team to win because it makes your job easier. I love you and I be able to come in here on Sundays and talk to the Niners, and the fans love saying, hey, look, my team's in the thick of things. They're still in the playoff hunt. They still have an opportunity. Because when it's over and you're no longer in it, it's like, okay, we just got to get ready for next year. That's what this game is about tonight. Can we just keep our hope? Can we keep hope alive? This is the game to say, this game is about keeping hope alive for yourself, for your fans, for your peers, for people that just around you in this Bay Area. And I think that it will take a huge gallant effort to keep hope alive, but it is possible that they can do that tonight, and it would be huge for the fan base.
Well, and that is one of the hardest working football media members in the Bay Area, Lorenzo Neal, along with Evan Giddings, Cam Williams with us behind the glass. We'll take a break, be back on the other side here on the kickoff show, again presented by Habas Law. Back with more after this on 95.7 The Game. Quick segment here. Lorenzo Neal, Evan Giddings getting jiggy with it before the Niners take on the Buffalo Bills at 5:20 in Orchard Park, New York. It's not cold here, but it is cold there. And, Lo, just kind of thinking about what happened around the rest of the NFL today. Unfortunately for the Niners, not many things good. Outside of the Cardinals losing in Minnesota,
Right.
The Seattle Seahawks basically survived the New York Jets. I know you were on that game being pretty close.
Yeah.
And then the Los Angeles Rams basically survive a New Orleans Saints team, which officially has the Niners, if they lose this game, all alone at the bottom of the NFC West.
Yeah, and that's why this game is big, and I think the Niners, they got to be watching their TV and seeing exactly what's going on. You're in Buffalo. I did a lot of screen watch. We call it screen watching. You go out and you warm up, and usually they have highlights or they're going to have the scoreboard so you can see around the NFL. So you're warming up, getting ready to play, and you're like, okay, this team lost. All right, this team won. So you're looking at that. So I'll tell you, go in the locker room, and you're like, all right, Rams took care of business. Seattle took care of business. You know what? Arizona didn't. All right, guys, we know what we need to do. So I think this is a bigger game now, even gets that much bigger. And I think just for the psyche of this 49er team, how big do you jump back on the bandwagon? I know I jump on the wagon. If you can beat Buffalo, a team that I believe is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the AFC, if you can beat them, I'm jumping back on this wagon. So this is tall cotton for the San Francisco 49ers. They know what's at stake, especially having all the guys, Buffalo having 10 days coming off a bye, and you are injured, decimated by injuries. Find a way to win this game, and I'm back on the Niner bandwagon.
Yeah, because right now, they're still, look, if they win this game tonight, they're a game out against the Seattle Seahawks. They don't have, the conference record in their favor right now, but, essentially you got a chance in a couple weeks. You play Los Angeles. You still have that Week 18 game against the Cardinals. If you find a way to beat those rest of those division opponents, this season isn't necessarily dead. But I am with you. If they win this football game, it is like they have been defibrillated. They just got electrified.
Yeah.
Someone has shocked them and brought them back from the dead. It's Undertaker rising and the WWE meme. They are back from the dead if they somehow win this football game.
Absolutely. It would be WWDE, WWF, WW, the
WD-40.
The WD-40. It would be a UFC. This would be everything. If you can find a way to muster up a win with backup guard, backup tackle to the left side, and not having a lot of guys on your defense, not having your really number one true receiver, and with the plethora of injuries, and you're going to a hostile environment, coming off of a bye, a team that's coming off on a bye after a big win, this win would be the biggest win of the season. This would be the game that you say that changed the 49er season. Because if you win this game, you've shown that you can beat a playoff team. You've shown that, that you can get to the playoffs and make noise. That's how big this game removes all doubt, because it's set up so prime for Buffalo to destroy you. And if you win this one, I'm back. Like I said, I'm back on the wagon.
Well, we'll get you back in a sec. I know we got to get you to your studio, so we're going to step aside after this quick break, come back. Lowe's going to join us on the other side. Moving remote. Again, you can catch him pregame KPIX right there on all your local Fox sports networks. Lorenzo Neal, Evan Giddings on the Kickoff Show, presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. Do want to dig deeper into the NFC, how it impacts the Niners, as we get you set again for 5:20 kickoff, Sunday Night Football, Niners, Bills in Orchard Park, New York. We'll step aside. Be back after this quick break on 95.7 The Game. Along with Lorenzo Neal here with you, getting us set for Niners and Bills, 5:20, about an hour away from Sunday Night Football. Lo, my man, it is, as we're kind of just going through this thing, figuring out how big of a game it is for the 49ers, can you recall a game where you felt like it was, I don't know, the worst weather condition you played in, and did you look forward to it?
No, I absolutely hated it. I remember playing against, I was with the Chargers, and we're playing against the Cleveland Browns. I think it was like friggin' 14 degrees with a 20% wind chill factor, minus 10 wind chill factor. LT looked back at me one time, one play, and he said, low, and I said, what? He goes, I can't feel my hands. I'm like, I turned around and said, what do you want me to do? But I'm not running the ball for you. I mean, it was absolutely freezing playing there. So people think, oh, it's fun, make snowmans and all that in the snow. It is nowhere near fun. It's absolutely horrible playing in that type of weather.
Is it even possible to mentally or physically prepare yourself for a condition like that? And again, tonight it's mid-20s. There's snow on the ground. It's currently snowing in Buffalo, and wind is going to be 15 to 20 miles per hour. I mean, can you even do anything to really get set for that?
I think mentally you can, man. It's just mentally eat it. You just have to be like, hey, look, you know what you're getting ready to play in. You have to understand the elements, and you got to say, this team has to play in it as well. Now, yes, there can be more acclimated because they're there all week long. They're outside practicing in that weather. They're used to it a lot more than you are. But when you go into a road trip like this, you have to have a mental attitude to say, look, I have to be mentally prepared to go into this with these elements, and I'm going to have to play. I'm going to have to play hard. I'm going to have to play well, and I'm going to have to be focused, and I understand what's at stake. That's what takes over. Tonight is a game where mentally and you're physically, you have it. It's just mental tonight. The weather is going to be cold. The elements are going to be different, but this is a mental game for the Niners as well.
Well, and obviously Buffalo plays in home. These November, December, and sometimes January games, they do benefit the team that's mostly in that. But I remember watching you guys, whether it's when you were on the Chargers in the mid-2000s, a lot of those successful teams, commentators and broadcasters would always play up the fact that, the Chargers are from the West Coast, and now, the San Francisco 49ers are from the West Coast. Is there something to that people just perceive these West Coast teams, even though you got players from all over the country, that they perceive those teams to be a little bit softer because you got sunshine for most of the year?
Hey, you do. That's the perception, but that's not reality. A lot of these guys, just because they're on the Chargers, you got to realize a lot of these guys come from the Midwest. A lot of these guys aren't just California guys. Look at Debo. Look at a lot of these guys that are on the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of these guys are not from California their whole life, so they have the mental fortitude to understand how to deal with that. And that's what you wanted to shame. You wanted to make sure those critics that saying, this is a West Coast team, you can't play in it. I remember Marty Scheinheimer and the guys, some of my coaches were like, hey, you guys think you're California kids and you're not tough enough, you can't handle it. That just motivates you to, as a player and as a professional player, it should motivate you to say, look, people are saying that I can't, I know I can.
Well, and look, we've discussed the inactives in this game. The Niners are going to be missing essentially 6 starters, Lenore, Trent. You look at, some of the other players. Brennan Allen officially out for this game. Nick Bosa is going to be out for this football game. Aaron Banks, they got a lot of guys down. But one thing that I've been, and as we were talking earlier about, all right, how do the Niners win this game? We both believe that a physical running game, whether it's with Mason at the forefront or involved at some point, is how the Niners can beat the Buffalo Bills. Lo, I'm looking around the rest of the league, and whether it's because Saquon's playing against Derrick Henry right now, you saw a big performance earlier today from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bucky Irving. The Niners have Christian McCaffrey. It does feel like this is always the time of the year in the NFL when people get reminded just how important running backs are. And I don't know if it's because of the weather and early in the season you can throw it a bit more, but it feels like November and December, that's where we see these RB1s come back into form and say, all right, that's a guy that I got to pay. The Cardinals just paid James Conner a 2-year contract for $20 million. The Buffalo Bills have James Cook, who's a nice running back for them. Why does it take 3 months into a football season for people to remember that you got to run the football to be good?
Yeah, I don't get that either, and I think that's why you play the game. I mean, Herm Edwards, you play the game. You play to win the game, and you're getting ready to play a team that, hey, no one is giving you an opportunity. No one's giving you a chance to win this game. This is that game you go in and you say, why not us? You go in here with the mindset of you're going to go shock the NFL world. No one's giving you a chance against the number 2 seed, the Buffalo Bills. Everyone's saying Buffalo should beat you, special coming off a 10-day rest and coming off a bye. Teams that come off a bye, usually they win, a higher percentage of winning. So don't give you the chance. But yeah, you watch now James Conner, he gets $10 million a year. Derrick Henry and those guys don't even get barely making $10 million a year, and they're way better. I think that it's showing you now the value that is coming back on these running backs because of the way you see the way that they're playing and the level in which they're playing at. I think it's great now that you're seeing, hey, look, these running back positions, I know it's forgotten art, and people say, oh, you don't need a running back, oh, whatever. I think now more than ever, you need them, especially November and December and January when the weather and the elements change. You better have a bell cow to be able to carry that mail for you to keep you out of harm's way. And I think tonight is not going to be an exception to the rule.
Well, in relation to Brock Purdy, it's what we were talking about earlier. It does feel unfair that a quarterback that is not the clear-cut best quarterback in the league automatically every year gets to reset the market, because even though I think running backs are underpaid, Christian McCaffrey still makes the most money out of all running backs. Derrick Henry is up there. Saquon Barkley is up there. These are the best guys in the backfield. As we discussed, for Justin Jefferson, he's the best wide receiver. He makes the most money for wide receivers. Nick Bosa, when he was the best defensive player. You can go down the list. Even though we can have the discussion about whether Brock Purdy's worth this or worth that, but I think it just highlights how unfair the rest of the NFL structure is when you look at the highest paid quarterbacks, because often it's almost as if you're just writing checks blindly based on the year and not based off what the production is from a particular player.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's where they really get it messed up, especially when a running back or running back's guy get hurt. You know what? They're not guaranteed. They take too many shots. After 3 years, they're done. And people start to believe these guys that did never played football, the analytics and all these numbers and what this show you. Then look, you know how important they are. Then why don't you pay them early? Give them the money that they deserve, because you know you need them. You saw this game, Baltimore and Philadelphia. It came down. It's two running backs that possibly could be the MVP of the league this year. So I think that it's just unfortunate. The other positions, they set the trend, and then they don't overpay them. They don't jump over them. But like the running back position, that's one position that they just don't value as much as they should. And it's great that running backs are having so much success this year.
100%. And looking at the Buffalo Bills, this is a team that has really built everything around their quarterback. And they did it because, yes, they paid Josh Allen a lot of money, but because even when they had him on a rookie contract or kind of a lower salary this was a guy that used to lead their team, obviously, in all the passing categories, but also he would be their top rusher. He would be their top rusher in terms of touchdowns, yards per attempt. Josh Allen literally was a one-man band for the Buffalo Bills, and to some extent he is this year a little bit, but coming off a bye week, this is a player that's obviously refreshed. For those that really care about these sort of things, he got engaged over the bye week, and Sean McDermott, the head coach for the Bills, has never lost off of a bye week. So it just goes to show how big of an uphill battle this is for the 49ers, and that Josh Allen, though it's a difficult task, that is the one guy that you have to figure out a way to slow down. Otherwise, it's going to be a long night.
If you don't slow him down, he's going to beat you. He's going to beat you physically. He's going to beat you. He's just too big, too tough, too strong, too physical to tackle one-on-one. He can beat you with his arm. This is his team now. He has taken over this team. You know what Josh Allen brings to the team. You know Josh Allen is the leader of this team. And you just watch the way that now, since he doesn't have other guys around that he has to feed, he has taken over and has taken steps to say, hey, look, put it on my back. You watch the way that these guys follow him. You watch the way that he leads these guys, and you watch the way that this team is playing behind him. He's more careful with the ball. He doesn't make as many mistakes as he used to make, and now Josh Allen is really functioning at a very, very high level.
Yeah, and he's a big reason why the Buffalo Bills have been in a situation where, I don't know, it's kind of like the 49ers in the NFC, they haven't had to go through the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. They haven't had to play the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Pittsburgh Steelers, teams that have had success in the last 5 or 10 years. And so that's why, Lo, as we kind of steer the conversation back to the 49ers, it's one thing where I look at Buffalo as a team that's had someone in the way, but in the way on their side of the bracket. The 49ers have had somewhere in their way of winning Super Bowls. And the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago against the Eagles, that's one, it's hard for me to evaluate because your quarterback gets hurt so early in that football game. I don't want to say that the Eagles have been in the way of the Niners. That was a game where injury was in the way of the Niners. But the Chiefs have stood in the way of both of these football teams, the 49ers and the Buffalo Bills. And so I think that's also something that's kind of an underlying theme to this, or a storyline to this game, is that you could look at both of these franchises. We've talked a lot about both of these quarterbacks. Josh Allen has obviously been in the league for much longer than Brock Purdy. But if not for the Kansas City Chiefs, both of these franchises might have hoisted Lombardi trophies. The Niners, a pair of them. The Buffalo Bills, perhaps one or maybe even two. You look at the NFC Championship, the AFC Championship game that they lost to Kansas City. You look at the divisional round game a few years ago that came down to 13 seconds left. The Chiefs going down the field to make the game winning and the kick to send the game, the game winning kick, I should say. You know, these are two teams that have been basically belittled by Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's why when we talk about, you know, paying quarterbacks or head coaches who deserve to be on hot seats, it's really difficult for me to look at both of these football teams. Because remember, last year, Sean McDermott for a while was on the hot seat. This was a Bills team that ran the table at the end of the season to get back to the playoffs. They ended up obviously losing by a field goal to the Kansas City Chiefs at home. But Sean McDermott had had a situation where he was in the bullseye. He was in the crosshairs for a lot of people. Kyle Shanahan now is in the crosshairs for a lot of individuals, whether it's fans, mostly fans, I would say. But it is always strange how much a game or two dictates the narrative about a particular person, that Kyle can't get it done, that Josh Allen can't get it done. When the two individuals, or maybe even three if you want to throw Travis Kelce in there, the two individuals, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, have stood in the way of both of these franchises for the better part of the last half decade. And if not for those two guys, both of these two teams might have been equally deserving of championships, of praise, and not of the criticism that continuously follows them throughout the regular, as well as for the Niners most of the times, the postseason. The other part of this game for the 49ers that is interesting to me, and I don't know how people take it. If you want to chime in, 888-957-9570 is the number. This is the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. Also want to tell you that we have a conversation with Hall of Fame Buffalo Bills receiver Andre Reed coming up in just about 15 minutes. He was on with Willard and Dibbs, Lorenzo Neal, along with Dan Devone, Jake Hutchinson, and earlier this week, I thought they had a fantastic conversation to go down memory lane to get you set for the game. We're going to rack that conversation coming up in about 15 minutes here on 95.7 The Game to get you ready for Sunday Night Football between the Bills and the Niners. But with Kyle Shanahan, it pains me to say this, but because of how successful he's been, and the Niners have been, quite frankly, that due to their own success, it's the reason why this season has been the most disappointing in Kyle Shanahan's tenure. Because you look at 17 and 18, those are seasons that you kind of throw them out. You either didn't have a quarterback or your quarterback was injured. And Kyle Shanahan was trying to create basically a culture. He was trying to remake a franchise that had just been wallowing in sorrow for the period that Jim Harbaugh left and then the period that Kyle Shanahan got into the building. It was a long 3 seasons. But once Kyle Shanahan got his team in 2019 to a place of relevancy, the Niners have been the crown jewel of the NFC. I understand they don't have the crown jewel to hoist, but they have been the best team in the National Football Conference. This season has been the most disappointing year under Kyle Shanahan because of his success. And that's why I absolutely hear fans that want to throw shade, that point their ire in the direction of the head coach. But it's also difficult for me to completely come down his road because the only reason that people, I think, are so mad at him is because of how far he, along with this front office led by John Lynch, has been able to take the 49ers in recent memory. They are a product this season, and the lack of winning and the overall disappointment that the Niners have had this year, it's a product of their own creation. They've been so good that we've just come to expect that this team is going to be contending year in and year out, that when they don't, and when they have a year like this, which due to, I think, a Super Bowl hangover, injuries, Coaching's taking a step back. I mean, they've been hit with everything possible. And if they win tonight, they're still a 500 football team. I don't think they're going to win against the Buffalo Bills as everything is stacked against them. But it is interesting to me to look at the way that Kyle Shanahan has done his job this season, because I don't necessarily believe that he has approached this year, or individual games for that matter, that much differently than he has in years past. The only difference is they haven't been as successful. And he's a big reason for that. I think Brock Purdy and some regression and a lack of weapons around him is a big reason for that. I think injuries, especially highlighted by tonight with the amount of guys they have out, is a reason for that. I think the defense taking a step back is a reason for that. Kyle Shanahan's lack of attention to special teams and their overall inability to seemingly play 4 quarters of clean special teams football is a reason for that. But the San Francisco 49ers, their season has been in turmoil really from the time that they lost in overtime to the Kansas City Chiefs until now. And they haven't done anything to change our minds about that. And that's where this game on Sunday Night Football in front of the nation, Tirico and Collinsworth and on NBC. By the way, go check out Lorenzo Neal right now on KPIX if you want a full game preview on television for that. But in front of the nation, the Niners do have an opportunity in front of them because no one expects them to win this game. And in one breath, I said that this has been the most disappointing season under Kyle Shanahan for the San Francisco 49ers, their franchise, their fan base, for everybody associated with the red and gold. However, they have not often been in a place like this, to bring it to the micro, in one game where they have had the expectation of just simply getting blown out. With their starting quarterback, with Kyle Shanahan's guy, I don't know if you could make the case that since 2018, that the 49ers have been underdogs and expected to simply roll over in a fashion that they've gotten to here. And so again, I think that's a reflection of how good the Niners have been over the course of this season, and is a big reason why people are looking at this game and will extrapolate what Brock Purdy does against the Buffalo Bills when things are against him. I also talked about earlier, and I said this with Lowe, the fact that this is a game that Brock Purdy is going to have to play, and in all probability is going to have to win in a couple of seasons when I believe the San Francisco 49ers pay him. Whether it's because they pay him this offseason, I think there's an avenue in which they force him to play his final year. Maybe they look at a franchise tag avenue, or maybe even they bring in someone else to compete alongside Brock Purdy, a la Sam Darnold. There's a lot of different places and avenues the 49ers go down this offseason. I believe the most likely one is they simply pay Brock Purdy, they keep their QB1 in-house, and they run this thing back because they believe that injuries, hold-ins, holdouts, along with the Super Bowl hangover is why they suffered and stuttered this season. But that also means that they've never been able to play as freely as I think they're going to be able to play tonight. They'll never be in a situation, and they haven't been in a situation where they've had their backs up against the wall the way they have tonight. So whether they come out swinging, whether they roll over, I do think that the Niners are in a place that they haven't been, especially since Brock Purdy has taken over the helm. I don't know how many games they have been underdogs since Brock Purdy's been quarterback. Last week, they were obviously underdogs. But with Brock Purdy at QB, and oh, by the way, that was the first time since the NFC Championship game that Brock Purdy did not finish a football game in which he was available for. I guess technically you could say last season in Week 18 when Sam Darnold started, but that was because the Niners had already locked up the 1 seed in the NFC. A game in which Brock Purdy has had to miss due to injury, there's only been one of them from start to finish, and that was last week in Green Bay. Brock Purdy has been as close to an Iron Man as you could hope, which is strange to think about considering his stature, considering his size, and basically considering the fragility of that position. We saw Trevor Lawrence get decapitated earlier today by Azeez Al-Shaair, and I think it was one of the dirtiest hits that I've seen in quite some time. But that could happen to Brock Purdy or any quarterback for that matter at any time. So the fact that Brock Purdy, what I'm trying to put in perspective here is the fact that Brock Purdy has been as healthy as possible and as available as he's been for the Niners, I think that also does factor into the decision of whether or not to pay him next season. You know, someone like Lamar Jackson, for example, or even Josh Allen. Let's not take Josh Allen because he's been available too. But Lamar Jackson has had a couple of seasons in which he has been not healthy and has not been available for his football team, but is getting paid because of the ceiling that he puts the Baltimore Ravens at. I think Brock Purdy, his best ability has been his availability. And tonight we're going to see how well he can play when he's under the weather, when he doesn't have a 100% shoulder, because that's also a mark of a lot of great quarterbacks. How do you play when you're hurt and when you are technically still on the field, but not at 100%? Someone like, and Lorenzo and I talk about this all the time, Justin Herbert is a quarterback that I believe is, as good as any. Hasn't had postseason success. Maybe they'll get there this year with Jim Harbaugh. But Justin Herbert has played through broken ribs. He has played through labrum injuries. He played through earlier this season the high ankle sprain. And while he was less of himself, he wasn't able to run, maybe he wasn't able to throw the ball as far, they had to make adjustments offensively, he was still available for this team. It does beg the question, how good of a quarterback Brock Purdy can still be when he's not 100%. Because if he's not, that's also something you got to think about moving forward. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that I believe are going to be available this offseason. Sam Darnold is obviously a free agent. I'm putting these names out there without anything attached to them. Sam Darnold is a free agent this offseason. I believe that Kirk Cousins is going to be a trade candidate this offseason. He may not start the rest of the season for the Atlanta Falcons after what he did today against the Chargers, basically giving that game away. And that is a division that is open for business. The Carolina Panthers came back and just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a game that no one expected the Buccaneers to lose. The Falcons now have a 6-6 record and are a team that is going to be limping to a division potential title the way that anybody who wins the NFC West division title will limp to. And so do they decide to keep Cousins, who they gave a 4-year contract to this offseason? Do they decide to lean into, which I believe they should as early as next week, Michael Penix, their rookie quarterback from Washington, who they drafted the same offseason that they paid big money to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins could be a trade candidate. Sam Darnold is someone that'll be available. Is Daniel Jones someone that another team in a reclamation project a la Sam Darnold, a la Baker Mayfield before he found a home in Tampa Bay? Is that someone that a team like the 49ers would like to give a chance to? There's going to be quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, who I believe are over the hill, but maybe with a new change and newfound scenery could give you a stopgap necessary to go out and find the next guy. I think the Niners have a big decision to make at the quarterback position because, to bring it back to Sunday Night Football, in comparison to Josh Allen, Brock Purdy is not simply somebody that on a given day with a roster that is banged up or injured, that you feel confident going into a place like Buffalo against a top-tier team and winning that football game. The Buffalo Bills, if they were missing 6 of their starters and they had to go into a hostile environment, a lot of people would still believe that someone like Josh Allen could will them to a victory. We don't know if Brock Purdy can do that yet. I don't feel good about it tonight. I didn't feel good about it last week in Green Bay. I think that if he played against the Packers, the Niners still lose that game. But the point is that Brock Purdy has a lot to prove tonight in relation to whatever the contract that he is going to receive this offseason. I think he still gets it for the 49ers because I think that there was a lot that happened this season that went against the Niners that will not be there next year. I think that they're going to be able to shed some loose weight as far as old and kind of, albatross contracts. I think that they're going to run into hopefully some more injury luck next season, or health, I should say. Ideally, your first-round pick doesn't get shot during the summer. Ideally, your number one wide receiver that you paid big money to doesn't tear his ACL. Ideally, a cornerback like Charvarius Ward in tragic fashion doesn't befall a family tragedy. These are all things that the 49ers could not control that have hurt them this season, in addition to a wonky training camp, to a wonky summer coming off of a Super Bowl defeat that I do believe is a deflating type of feeling to walk into your next season with, knowing you got to climb the summit one more time just to get a crack at it. I think it's a big reason why the Philadelphia Eagles are a football team now that we've seen a resurgence from, because the Eagles dealt with their Super Bowl hangover last year. They even lost a team captain like Jason Kelce, who retired, who was a staple among that Eagles offensive line. And they went out and they re-jolted themselves. They got defibrillated with a player like Saquon Barkley I'm not sure if there's a player out there of that caliber for the 49ers, but if there is, I do think there's some sort of jolt or boost that they can make to this football team, and they already have a lot of great players. You know, how I'm looking at this football game is the Niners have an opportunity to get down the stretch of this season, specifically tonight, a lot of valuable in-game against the grain, back against the wall repetitions for rookies. Almost every single rookie for the 49ers this season has gotten snaps that they drafted. The only guy I believe that hasn't is Jarrett Kingston, who they had to release because they couldn't keep him on their practice squad. He got claimed. He was their 6th-round pick. That's the only guy that hasn't gotten time on the field for the 49ers this season from this rookie class. Now, that also means that you've taken a step back in some positions. You're going to make rookie mistakes. It's perhaps a reason why the Niners have lost some football games. But moving into the future, that's also a big reason why in their sophomore seasons, you're going to be able to say goodbye to potentially a player like Deebo Samuel, because Ricky Pearsall got valuable reps this season to help you for next year. You're looking at Charvarius Ward. As much tragedy as befallen him and his family, I think the Niners, in a contract year, might not be able to bring him back because he's priced himself out of their range. That's where someone like Renardo Green, their 2nd-round pick from Florida State, playing big snaps this season will help him if and when he has to step into the starting lineup next season. Malik Mustafa might have been the most consistent player among the rookie class outside of Dominic Pooney, who's been a day one starter in the offensive line. But Malik Mustafa, he's playing, and the Niners might say goodbye to this offseason to someone like Talanoa Hufanga, who has either priced himself out or Mustafa has proven that he's a better safety for this Niners team moving forward. The Niners, I think, have an opportunity in the future and as soon as next season to get younger, but because of the reps that the rookies have gotten this year, because of the injuries, because of lack of productivity, and overall because of the down year the Niners have had, that will help them next season. I'm actually very bullish on what the 2025 49ers have been, though I was not as bullish on this season. I felt like coming into this year, the Niners had a lot of things stacked against them. And in addition to the contracts and kind of the weird vibes during the summer, you look at the amount of teams, including a one like tonight, you know, they're playing a lot of teams that are coming off of buys. I think that they were dealt a poor hand as far as the first place schedule they had to play, and even look at the rest of the season. And so it demanded that the Niners come out of the gate strong against their first 5 teams that they simply didn't and weren't in a position to, because of, you know, it's kind of the sluggish start that sometimes happens to teams that make deep postseason runs. The Niners were not as buttoned up at the beginning of this year when they needed to be to stack the wins necessary to be able to sustain losses at this point in the season. If they close games against the Rams and the Cardinals, the Niners are a 7-4 team right now that can lose a game and still be in a position to win the West, or even a wild card team if they're not beating the Seattle Seahawks down the stretch. That's not a position that they're afforded right now because they blew some of those football games. Yeah, from the 510 Comcast Business Text line, silly take on Brock. Josh Allen wasn't good until his 3rd season. Brock hasn't finished his 2nd full season as starter. Yeah, well, I hate to break it to you. Brock Purdy's team is getting worse over the course of the next couple of years. Josh Allen, you're right, wasn't good until his 3rd season, but he had a lot better of a team around him. Also, Josh Allen is a player that you cannot compare to Brock Purdy. The physical traits are demonstrably different, and that's a guy that is someone that could always throw the football out of a gym. That's someone you had to tinker with, not someone that you're asking to all of a sudden throw the ball a lot harder, run faster, grow, and get stronger. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy can't be better as a quarterback, but what I'm saying is that comparing the two and what they're able to do as one-man bands is just simply unfair. Josh Allen has always been able to do that. Brock Purdy needs more around him than Josh Allen does. I don't think that's a far-fetched take, and I think that's something you're also going to see tonight is Brock Purdy being asked to do a lot more with less. If he wins this football game to the 510, I will apologize to him. But what he's being asked to do is an extremely difficult thing that only a few quarterbacks, in my opinion, can do, and one of those happens to be playing for the other team. But as for right now, taking you up until 5 o'clock, I do want to revisit a conversation that Lorenzo Neal had earlier in the week with one of his longtime buddies, Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Andre Reed was a bad boy in his day. Actually met him at Super Bowl on Super Bowl week at Radio Row up in Las Vegas. Very nice man as well. Has a lot to say about not just the football, but a lot of other eclectic interests that he has. I thought it was a fantastic conversation. So we begin with Andre Reed again from earlier in the week, along with Lorenzo Neal, Dan Devone, and Jake Hutchinson. That'll take you up until 5 o'clock. Here's how the conversation began between Lorenzo and Andre Reed.
Well, you know what? Lowe's, he's a jack of all trades, man. He's a joke.
Thank you.
He could get his way out of a paper bag. So he's
Dre, come on, man. Why you coming at your boy? Why you on my neck like that, bro? I thought I was your guy. I thought I was your brother from another mother. Holla at your boy, baby. What's good?
Dude, you know, we always like that, man. I
know, man. You know I got some bones to pick with you, man. For one, man, you don't even invite your boy to your golf tournament every year. You know I be trying to come through, and you just treat me sometimes like a redhead stepchild. Why you doing your boy like that?
It ain't like that. You definitely in this year, bro. You know.
Okay. All good, brother. All good. Hey, you looking at the Bills, seeing how what they putting down this year. You look at the Niners, bang bang Niner game. What have you seen thus far with the Niners? And if they're going to have any chance against Buffalo, what's going to happen?
Well,
keep it 100.
The Niners this year, I think they've been decimated by some injuries, man. They didn't have all their guys in the past all playing together at one time. I mean, Kittle's been injured. McCaffrey's been out. You know, I don't know if McCaffrey's the same player he was before this injury he had, but you know that's a big blow for them. That's their offense there, them two guys, and Purdy is not. You know what? A guy like Purdy, who was very efficient last year, because he had those guys. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he could rely on them. Debo's been hurt a little bit this year. So the 49ers are 5-5 because of that reason, I think. It's not like Kyle Shanahan is doing a bad job coaching. They still have most of the same guys. They still have the offense and defensive coordinators. It's just I think they've just been decimated by injuries this year at the wrong time. So this week it's not gonna be any different. The weather's gonna be jacked up there. You guys know it's that time of year in Buffalo where snow's coming. And I don't know if the 49ers are privy to that or be ready for that. But it should be a pretty good game. It should be a pretty good game, though.
Andre, what is that atmosphere like in Buffalo when it is snowing and that crowd is as good as any in the league? What is that atmosphere like for people who haven't been in it?
It's pretty harrowing. I mean, Bills Mafia, everybody knows about Bills Mafia, and their fans are there regardless of the weather. When I came in the league in '85, there was no such thing as Bills Mafia. We barely had fans at the game. I think we had like maybe 20,000 fans or so at our games, but they are loyal, and just like any other fan base, they're loyal to their team. But you know, they're a movement now, and they're a great traveling fan base. They go to different stadiums and they take over, if you want to call it that. I've been to a couple of away games over the past 10 years, and they come with a contingency. There's no doubt about it. So they're very, very active with their team, and they love their team. So very hard to play up there. I know Lowe's played up there a few times.
Very hard.
It's a deafening situation up there when you come to Buffalo, especially at this time of year with snow and weather being a factor.
Former Buffalo Bills Hall of Fame wide receiver Andre Reed joins us on the River Islands guest line. Andre, it was just revealed moments ago that Fred Warner, the star linebacker for San Francisco, has been playing on a fractured ankle for the last 8 weeks. Have you ever dealt with anything like that? And talk to us about what sort of pain and pain threshold that he's dealing with on a weekly basis.
Wow. And he is the quarterback of the defense for San Francisco. When Fred Warner's in there, I think he's, one of the best linebackers in the game. When he's healthy, he's pretty tough. I don't know, man. It's again, even on that side of the ball, it's different. When you don't have the quarterback of that, of the defense, everybody's out there just, it's a little different.
Sure.
And Fred calls all the defenses, I assume, and he's the guy they look for big plays. The 49ers, he's playing on a broken ankle, so he's more
let's see, Jack Youngblood played on a broken leg in the Super Bowl against the Steelers. So he's a little Jack Youngblood playing right now. So
have you ever had to play through something like that? A broken bone, a fractured bone?
Oh yeah, fingers. Actually, I fractured my fibula one game and really was supposed to be out. The tib fib joint, I fractured that, but came back the next week and played. I was I don't know, man. I was a different guy out there, I guess. I don't know. Just like Lowe. Lowe was a different dude out there.
Dre, you definitely was, man. You always have. That's the way you played the game. Reckless and abandoned, but always under control. Hey, tell me, you and I, we both played on some great teams. We also played on some teams that the years we had a bad year. Tell the listeners, when do you think when it's over? How do you know in the locker room, and how do you know when you're a team that's right there and you know that maybe you can't beat a team, or you're getting this team's greatest slide? What is it that players feel?
Well, most teams, every team in the league wants to get a sort of a culture going on in their organization. All the way from the top, from the owner, all the way down to the bottom, to the guy cleaning up at night. And when that culture is all going in the right direction, everything's going right for you. It's hard to beat. And I think that's what organizations try to do. They try to get the right people in the right places, the right coaches, the right atmosphere. That's hard to do in the NFL, with the change of everything. Everything's different. When I came in '85, the game was totally different, all the way from the top to the bottom than it is now. It's more analytic than it's ever been. Back in the day, you didn't have targets. Now they count targets. I never knew what that was to a certain point. Just throw me the ball, I'll catch it. That was my target. But they use all this and put it in a computer. And, a lot of times players get beat physically, but you get out-coached, and sometimes you just get outsmarted by teams. And look at what the Chiefs have done the past, how many years since Andy Reid's been there. Andy Reid is going to be a Hall of Fame coach, but Andy Reid beats people. Bottom line, he beats them, not the team. He does, because of the way he coaches.
Andre, I'm sure as well as anyone, just coming back from a season where you get to the mountaintop and come up short. This 49ers team has obviously been through that. What is it like trying to climb that mountain again when you don't get over that hump?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's another year. Everybody in that league wants to go to a Super Bowl and win one. Unfortunately, I went to 4 and didn't win, but there's 7 Hall of Famers from that football team, and a coach, an owner, and a GM. So in the long run, I think I won to a certain point, but obviously I would have loved the Super Bowl ring. That's the ultimate goal in our game. And to try to get everybody on the same page, all the way from them going into the locker room to them leaving the locker room, it's tough. And Lorenzo knows that. It's tough to get everybody on the same page. You got different personalities. You got different this, different that. Coaching changes every year. It's a lot of things to handle for a head coach. And to get that all together and then go win a Super Bowl, that's a tough job to do.
Hall of Fame wide receiver, former Buffalo Bill, Andre Reed, joins us on the River Islands guest line. Andre, really quick, don't go PC on me, but who's the best wide receiver in the game today?
Oh, I get that question. Oh, man. If I had $1 for everyone, I wouldn't have to
You'd be
that
rich,
question there. Well, I mean, in no particular order, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, I think Stephon, before this injury now that he had, was in the top, at least top 6 or 7 guys. Cooper Kupp. I can go on and on. Every team, Ahmad St. Brown right now, I think is a top 5 guy in the league. All these guys you're only as good as the quarterback to a certain point. And these guys have pretty good quarterbacks that they have throwing the ball to them. And, they do a great job in their offenses, and they get them the ball. And that's how they win.
Andre, one guy who's kind of taken himself way out of that conversation is Deebo Samuel. There's been a lot of discussion over here about him and who he is as a player, how much of it is poor blocking. But he's obviously been a guy who's sort of, he named the position the wide back because he gets used in some interesting ways. But What do you see from him? He doesn't quite look the same. And when you're a player that's not a true receiver like he is, I mean, do you think this is sort of him falling off a cliff, or is this just a blip in his career?
No, I think, again, the injury bug, I mean, he's been a little nicked up this year. Debo's always came back from those injuries because he's a physical guy. When he gets the ball, like you said, they have him in the backfield. He runs like a running back. And when he gets the ball, there's not too many people catching him, especially as a receiver. So I think it's just been, he's just trying to get back to what he's used to. And that really can only happen if the offense is gelling together and he's a part of it. And then if McCaffrey's in there, it makes his job a little bit easier when McCaffrey's in there and he's playing well. So, Debo's Debo no matter what. So I think, they just have to get him the ball, and he's got to be confident enough that he can get the job done regardless of what's been going on there in San Francisco this year.
Andre, I'm looking at a position that seemed like has fell off the last 7 or 8 years. And, this year you can put them in the MVP conversation. Do you think they should be getting paid way more? And that's the running back position. Look what Saquon, look what they're doing. Why are they not when you see how vital they can be in this league?
That's a good question, Lo, because ever since, I left the game 20-some years ago, the running back position has been devalued to a certain point because they want skill guys, and a running back's a skill guy, but offenses have changed. They become more, get the fast guys out there and get them in space. But when it comes to around this time, you need a running back really bad with weather and with things when you can't pass the ball as much as you want to. You need a guy like Saquon, a guy like Derrick Henry. These guys are very viable to their offenses and their teams. So what Saquon's doing this year is, especially coming back from, a bad knee injury, and then he had a year or two of some injuries that maybe could have, ended his career. And I think he showed all the work that he's done in the off season and all the things that he's done to get himself back in the shape that he's usually in. And he's having a phenomenal year there in Philly for the Eagles. So I think it's just been devalued, and these guys are really important to their teams. And again, this next 6 weeks, with weather, we're going to see how valuable they are.
Andre Reed, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, joining us here on 95.7 The Game on the River Islands guest line. Really quick, before we let you go, back in the day, you were part of the K-gun offense, which was way ahead of its time. I mean, you guys were going shotgun, spreading the field. Cincinnati did it before you, but it was not something you saw in football back in the 1990s. And I talked about this and making the comparison to that of the 49ers, that eventually DCs or defensive coordinators, when you put them in that dark room and they're looking at film, they'll find some way to stop it. Do you think that what it is that we've seen with the 49ers as far as their being so dominant and so innovative with Kyle Shanahan as far as their offense, that maybe defenses have closed that gap and have found an answer to the secret sauce, so to speak?
That's pretty a pretty good analogy there. We came out with that K-gun, like you said. Before that, it was the muddle huddle that Cincinnati ran. And then we just took it to another level because we ran it all the time. And we were ahead of it because defenses could not catch up with it. And regardless of what they were game planning, they had the game plan. All right, this week we need to stop Thurman Thomas. This week we have to stop Reed. We got to stop Lofton. We got to stop McKellar. We got to stop Beebe. There's too many people to stop. You don't have enough guys on the defense to stop everybody. But I think Kyle Shanahan, he's a defensive-minded guy, has to a certain point, knows that. And he's going to put his guys in, especially on offense, going to put them in the right positions to make plays. It's up to them to execute.
Andre, where are you living these days?
I'm in San Diego. I'm right down the street from, I'm in Rancho Bernardo here. Just moved in my house about a year ago, and really enjoying it here in San Diego. And Matter of fact, I'm going to the game this weekend, Buffalo, San Francisco, so I will be there for that game.
See, you guys, you talk about how much you love Buffalo, and I know you do, but the minute you guys get a chance to go to the sunshine and the beach, you're gone, man.
He's hating, Dre.
I'm out of here like lightning, bro. Like lightning. I'm gone.
Andre Reed, our guest. Hey, thanks for taking part of the day and joining us here on 95.7 The Game.
No problem, guys. Anytime, man. Good to talk to you. Good to talk to you, Lo.
All right, you too, brother.
Catch up.
No question. I'll give you a shout. Cheers.
Andre Reed, Hall of Famer. Our guest.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco on Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube.